Hi there. Delivering a negative message is never easy. Trying to uplift people's spirits when they're down or to avoid problems and the negativity that you may get from the negative information is a huge challenge. In this video, we're going to analyse Australia's Prime Minister Scott Morrison when he announces the unemployment rate for Australia in May during COVID-19. It's definitely a huge challenge. So let's see how he does and how he manages this situation. So just from the start, I want to highlight the fact that this was breaking news. Now it's important to know it's breaking news, and I'll highlight that later on.
Good afternoon. We're taking you live to Canberra and the Prime Minister.
38 months of job creation gone. 838,000 Australians having lost jobs. 227,700 in May.
So straight off the bat, the Prime Minister is talking about statistics. He's bringing out the statistics because he's talking about the unemployment figures. He's getting it off at the start, capturing our attention, but also getting the elephant out of the room. Otherwise, people are going to wonder, what are the unemployment figures? The other thing to note is that he's looking at his notes to make sure that he gets those statistics right, because there'll be nothing worse than to get those statistics wrong on an announcement like this.
As heartbreaking as all of these lives, stories are that are represented in these numbers.
So what I'd like you to take note of is Scott's delivery here. He's really showing a lot of empathy and he's trying to be sincere. If you look at the way he speaks, he is looking down a lot. His pace and tone of his voice, so his pace is a lot slower and his tone of his voice is quite low as well. The words that he uses also creates that idea of empathy.
The sad truth is these numbers are not surprising in the circumstances. We are very aware of the significant blow that Australians are being hit with through the course of this pandemic. This recession will be written in the stories of those who are experiencing terrible hardship.
Part of Scott's speech is really interesting, so take note of the sentences he uses and also note his demeanour, how it changes in the way he delivers his message.
And these statistics today are a reminder to all, not that we need one, that with all the other noise about whatever else is going on, our task is simple, and that is we must get Australians back into work. We must maintain our focus on them. All 838,000 of them.
So did you notice how he starts to pick up pace in the way he speaks? He's definitely more assertive and he's making more eye contact, because what he's talking about now is really what the government needs to do or what Australians need to do. He's shifted from that empathy towards what needs to happen. Now, if we go back and look at the sentences, he's really done a great job at cleverly setting up the quotable message or his key message. So he says words like, "This is a reminder to all." And so you're thinking, oh, what's this reminder? And then he says, "Not that we need one." So obviously this is something very simple that we should all know. Our task is simple. And so you're thinking, oh, there must be one very simple task. And then he says, we must get Australians back to work. So he uses 3 sentences to really set up his main point. And that main point is, we must get Australians back into work. And that's his key message here. Another thing to note is how he reflects back to that key statistic that he mentioned at the very beginning, 838,000 of them. which really gives us the idea that there are a lot of people who are impacted.
But we know there will be more in the months ahead. These figures were taken at a time just before actually the opening up of this three-step plan of the states were put in place, and that is of some comfort.
Now, this following part is also really interesting. Take note of the way he uses the word some comfort and what comes after it.
That would see some Australians finding their way back into employment, but I wouldn't be seeking to overstate that. There is some comfort that can be taken from the fact that we are making our way back and we are on the road back, and that we are taking steps every single day. We can take some comfort from the fact that Australia has put in place the biggest measure of income support the country has ever seen to cushion the blow, but the blow is still devastating and great.
Wow, so look at that. He uses some comfort 3 times. This is the idea of power of 3, and he's supporting this message. When he's saying some comfort, he's saying that, look, here, there are some positives to look at, but obviously not everything is rosy, because he wants to keep us grounded to know that we still have a huge challenge ahead. Now, what Scott does, which is really ninja, is that his some comforts are actually broken into 3 really clear things. The first some comfort talks about Australians and how they're fighting back. So that's the individual. The second some comfort, he talks about how we are back, we are on the road back. So this is really talking about us and being more inclusive. That's the second some comfort. And then the third some comfort is talking about how Australia has put in the biggest support package, which means he's looking at the bigger picture. Australia as a country, Australia as a nation. So if you look at it, it's 3 parts. It's the individual, it's we, the community, and then our country as a nation. So you can see how it moves from small to big.
And while Australia is doing better than almost any other developed economy in the world, if you've lost your job, that is no comfort. So we can't set our expectations on what's happening elsewhere in the world.
What Scott does here is really clever. All right, so first of all, he's highlighting that Australia is doing better off than most countries in the world. So there's a little bit of a positive there, and to say that the government's on track. The second thing he does, that he talks about the harsh truth. He tells us a harsh truth that if you lost your job, there is no comfort. And this statement is something that everyone can agree with. If you don't have a job, you're not going to be in a positive mindset. It's not going to be happy days. So he's making a statement that we will all agree with and nobody can rebut him. And the third thing he does says that we can't compare ourselves with the rest of the world. And again, he's setting himself up in such a way that the haters can't get at him. He's setting up the context to say that Australia is a different country and we can't compare ourselves with the rest of the world, because media, haters will always say, oh, but this country's, they're opening up faster, or this country is doing this, why aren't we doing this? By making this statement, he's really stating here that Australia is its own country and we have to do what is best for Australians.
Our expectations, the Treasurer and I, together with our government, is getting these Australians back into work, to getting business doors open, to continue to give Australians the hope and the confidence of the road back that we're charting together as a government, together with other governments around the country.
So notice how Scott is really being assertive here, and he's really driving home the point that we need to get Australians back into work. Notice how I mentioned earlier that this is breaking news. That breaking news, footbar, unemployment soars, PM, our task is simple, we must get Australians into work. This is a direct quote from what he said earlier on in his speech, which really highlights how effective Scott was in making sure the media knew what his key message was. Our task is simple. All right, it just really highlights whatever comes after that is going to be important, and the media has picked up on that.
These are our dark times, but I can see that ray of light, and I'm sure Australians can too, but we've got to keep moving towards it.
Wow, that sentence itself is just so short and memorable. These are our dark times. All right, he just punched it out. He used the pause effectively, and then he brings the metaphor together by saying, but I see the ray of light. So he brings that positiveness out, and he uses that metaphor. Again, this is going to be a key message that's really easy for us to remember.
We've got to keep working hard each and every day. We will not rest. We are working with some of the biggest economic challenges this country has ever faced. And your government is working day and night to get the balance right, to get the right supports in place, the ones that will work, the ones that will support, the ones that will encourage, the ones that will open business doors up again, the ones that will get Australians back into work. I can't tell you how focused we are on this.
Did you notice the repetition? Did you notice how Scott repeated the ones that will? And he said that about 5 times. Now, not only did he say it, he actually sped up his pace, because had he said all of those things with a long, slow voice, it would have dragged on. So picking up that pace, it just adds energy into his words and what he wants to say. The ones that will work, the ones that will support, the ones that will encourage, the ones that will open business doors, and the ones that will get Australians back into work. Now, I just tried to say that. It was quite a tongue twister. So for him to say it in such a poetic way was very difficult, but also very cool. You'll also notice that at the bottom, the key message has changed to, these are our dark times, but I can see a ray of light. So again, the media has picked up on his soundbite that he wants us to remember, and they've put it up on screen.
And so how disciplined we are as a team. Cabinet met for hours and hours and hours last night on these issues, as we have every week for months, working through the data. And there'll be more data, and we'll need more data before we make further important decisions.
Wow. Notice how he mentioned hours and hours and hours for days and for weeks. So he's just emphasizing the fact that the government has been working really, really hard, and the country's been working hard to try get this situation under control. Another thing that he does really well is he talks about data and how data is so important and how decisions are made on data, because this really makes us feel rest assured that the decisions being made are based on facts and data that we will use. They're not just pulling it out of the bag of tricks. They're making calculated decisions. It makes us feel more confident in the decisions that are made.
And that's how you can expect your government to respond and to behave and to work diligently for you to get Australians back into work. Young people have been most affected in these numbers. But my hope is that equally as the economy opens up, they will hopefully also be the first to benefit from that economy opening up. As retail doors open again, as food courts are open again, as shopping centres are fuller again, we hope to see more of those young people back into that work.
So very quickly there, notice how he uses the word again 3 times. When blah, blah, blah is again, blah, blah, blah again, blah, blah, blah again. Just that repetition or that alliteration of that sound.
But our task will be great, and our application will be there. Our determination will not waver, and the spirit of cooperation and partnership that we have worked hard to build over these many months across governments will continue. And we give Australians our pledge on that. Josh.
There you go, and that's coming into the conclusion. He concludes very simply with this idea of repetition. Our tasks will be great, our application will be there, our determination will not waver, our spirit of cooperation and partnership that we've built, blah, 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 blah. So he's using that our, is bringing us all together. Look at the words he's used. Our task will be great. So that's saying that we still have challenging times ahead. Our application will be there. That's saying that don't worry, we've got processes that we're going to action to get us out of this. And then finally, our determination will not waver. It's just showing that we have that spirit, that fighting spirit as a country. So 3 lines which look really simple, but actually the way it's worded builds on each other to create something very powerful. There you have it. Prime Minister of Australia, Scott Morrison, delivering the negative news of the unemployment figures to the nation during a COVID pandemic. I think overall, Scott did a fantastic job in taking a very well-crafted speech and making it feel very down-to-earth and sincere. Now, he did set the expectations that challenges still lie ahead, but he also drew on some hope, saying that Australia's in a pretty good situation, but there's still a lot of work to do. I would say that he also put in many lines in there, core messages that the media picked up on and the audience would pick up on, that they would take away. And that's what you want to do when you're Prime Minister, to have a very clear point of view so that people know the direction and know what you're aiming for. And with that, I hope you enjoyed this analysis. If you did, please feel free to click the like and to subscribe, and watch out for a following video which really talks about how you can make something look natural and sincere and how it looks when you're not natural and sincere. It's pretty amazing. Alright, see you soon. Bye now.